Just a wee reminder that we're recording tonight's event. I forgot to say it last time, so we just ended up not recording it, so I thought it'd be good to record this one. So hello everyone and welcome. Thanks for choosing Scottish Pen's Women Writers Committee to celebrate International Women's Day. Tonight's event is about celebrating the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women, as well as highlighting the problems that are still being faced in day-to-day life. And we'll be doing so through our own work while celebrating the work of other women alongside us. So International Women's Day, as I'm sure we all know, can be traced back to February 28, 1909, when the Socialist Party of America designed this day in honour of the garment workers' strike in New York. Having said this, the official celebration of International Women's Day actually happened in 1911, when women from several European countries, I think it was Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, Austria, I wrote that down, they participated in demonstrations where more than 1 million, which is incredible, women took to the streets to demand for the rights to vote and the right to hold public offices. Women also protested employment, sex discrimination and equal pay. Saying this, they did this back then, but some of these issues we are actually still facing today, as we all know, unfortunately. And although we can't deny how far we've came, we definitely owe thanks to the women before us who have helped play a massive part in where we are today, and we have to continue that journey. So tonight's event welcomes you to a space where we can discuss history, talk about the now, and also welcome the future. Really putting emphasis on the welcoming of the future. The purpose of tonight's event is to create a warm and welcoming space for women writers to build new connections and find solidarity, and also remind ourselves that it's important that women's rights and freedom shouldn't just sit and lie with women. It's everyone's job to play a role in creating an equal and fair society and world. Tonight's event will provide the chance to discuss issues along with the main positive things that we have achieved as a country but across the world. We will hear from Kerry and Rose, our wonderful committee members, and also we welcome Scottish Pen's board member, Rebecca. I'd like to also lovingly welcome you all to share your own story or your own work, have some time to use the space as you feel fit. So tonight, because I wrote this during the day, tonight I've decided to read a piece that I believe speaks to us all. Deanna Rogers is a very talented and wonderful woman who has reimagined and appropriated this inspirational poem called If by Kipling, and she's done so back 2019. My reason for doing this is I think that what she's done is a very, very powerful message for the modern day women, and it speaks to me in such a real and honest way. And also I've actually had the pleasure of working with Deanna, and it's funny because I joined, it was the Roundhouse and Roundhouse and Penn International, had done it's a kind of workshop. It was called Home, and that's how I ended up starting my journey with Scottish Penn back in 2016. Can't believe we're 2021 just now. So I'm going to read what she has created from this poem, and I think that it sets the event up perfectly. So here goes. If you can keep your head when those around you don't notice what you do, if you can trust yourself when others doubt you, because the only trust need comes from you. If you believe in more than you have ever seen, if you dream big every time you train, if you've ever learned about winning and losing and how to treat those feelings both the same, if you stand against trolls and gossip that twist your words into clickbait headlines, if you've championed, if you've been hated and kept on chasing champion status, taking any backlash in your stride, if you can chase the wins despite injuries, which have sat you out from selection, and all alone face your recovery, refusing to let it bench your ambition. if you can force your focus and your muscles when there's nothing left to give, to keep on working, and despite the struggle, dig deep and say, I can do this. If your heart beats loud at a stadium support, and if you leave it all in the ring, on the track, the pitch, or the court, you'll know that greatness is greater than gold. It's inspiring change from what's gone before. If you've ever felt unstoppable or felt that together is what makes you strong, yours will be the world to take by storm, and you'll be a woman who's won. I just think it's, oh, I love it. I just love that. I got really, really hyped up there. That's the adrenaline that I wasn't getting earlier. So that is how I'd like to set this event. And now I'm going to welcome the wonderful Rose to take the stage.
Hi there, it's lovely to be here, and happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much, Emma. That was just brilliant, and it's got me fired up as well now. So, how many times in the life of a woman do we need to change and adapt? Unless we die, something deep down inside of us takes over, not just to survive, but to also thrive. Well, I took off to Venezuela in 1980, many years ago when I was 21. Kicked off my wellies and put on my flip-flops. I had met and married Mario, a great guy from Chile. Away we went from Edinburgh on to new adventures. It was a culture shock seeing the high-rise buildings, and on the outskirts of the city, the twinkle lights of the shacks of the shanty towns on the mountains, where the people did not pay for the land, but they were survivors drinking cortados from the Portuguese coffee shops frequently. When it rained heavily, they built their shacks themselves all over again, because that was their law, rebuilding again and again. It was where I was to spend the next 10 years of my life and found out what I was capable of. I had 2 children by the time I was 26, and the businesses of my then father-in-law, Dolces Venezuelanos sweet shops, had collapsed and we were out of work. Not Goffredo's fault. Shit happens, like the time when he was shot in the leg, when someone stole all his money, so we paid for his medical bills because he had accidentally not taken out medical insurance. He survived, thank fuck for that, but so did I, so did we. Personal resilience takes over, and from my arrival in Caracas, I taught myself Spanish, taught myself to teach English as a foreign language. I did so during the Falkland War, teaching English to my Argentinian neighbours who were too busy thriving to worry about the faraway conflict of a stupid war. I was a pregnant TEFL teacher at Smith Language School. I also worked at the British Embassy in Caracas, issuing passports to the mostly Hong Kong Chinese and issuing visas. But in my 20s, I made the most of my new environment, my new culture, and I made great friends. I taught myself to lead another life and tapped into the resources I never knew I actually had from my Scottish upbringing, which had been streetwise for the most. My degree came later on in life. So my friend and mentor, Andrea, who worked with me at the British Embassy, phoned me up later on in life and said, "What? More children, Rose?" By that time, she was already an ambassador in Eritrea and had got an OBE for her work with the war in Iraq at the Foreign Commonwealth Office. She also led herself into a better career. She was a single mum then when we met in her 20s, but she was an educator. She was my mentor, a leader, a fighter, a survivor. And I know now, so was I, but so am I now. So protecting the ones closest to us on the way, nothing will stop us if we are driven to do so individually and collectively. What feels at the time right for us, we don't have to justify ourselves. External changes are something we cannot control, though we may need to tap into our emotional intelligence, strength to adapt and change again throughout our whole lives. We really meet extraordinary people that may influence our way of thinking and look nationally and internationally for these role models, you know. Athletes, actors, teachers, politicians, and the best coaches live by this sort of code. Influences of role models in the media, new horizons, breaking barriers. The environment matters more than ever after decades of environmental abuse. Disruption, political or environmental. Swedish influence from Greta Thunberg, real model in disruption to save our planet. There are international leaders that demonstrate human capability, awakening in us to drive, to change situations we once believed were just permanent. There are quite a few extraordinary men and women to look up to, and female role models are in no way exclusive to the female following. Take Tarana Burke. She is the female role model for the Me Too vibe. A fearless American civil rights activist, founder of the Me Too movement since 2006, way before the hashtag was popularized amongst the 2017 Harvey Weinstein abuse allegations. Burke had met a 13-year-old girl who described being sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. Burke didn't know what to say at the time, but she wished she could have given solace by saying, "Me too." This was in 1997. From there, Burke founded Just Being in 2003, an organization that supports disadvantaged minority women aged 12 to 18 by bringing attention to challenges that are pointed at females. I mean, there are many international and national role models, and this, to me, this Me Too hashtag reigns powerful with females and will never, I hope, go away. And this brings me to our First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. No matter what your politics are, she is certainly a fighter and a role model for young women being assertive in challenging situations, as clearly evident at the long 8-hour committee meeting where she gave evidence on behalf of the government for the Alex Salmond case. But there was one apology. Was one apology enough? To one woman. Once is enough to cause harm. That is not right. And Mr. Salmond was acquitted of all these 13 sexual allegations against him. So I'm not telling anything new. That's what happened. It's quite telling. A man in power, he wants the country to be independent. A woman in power, she wants the same. They have one goal. They smash the elections, but something happens. A Scottish Me Too thing happens, and women come forward to tell their truth to the law of the land. These women talk candidly, hidden on camera. Their voices disguised. They do not want to be identified. They are scared to show their faces. They are feared because they spoke about what happened to them. A man in power took advantage of them in an office setting. A man that was and thinks he's still powerful, above the law. Now a woman that has done nothing but good, in my opinion, for her country has been hounded. People want her to go because she's not fear. You see, she knows her enemy inside out, or at least she thought she did. She was once his friend. This woman will never give up her rightful place. And I'm fighting for her not to give up. I'm fighting for all us women not to give up. This woman is representing the women behind the cameras, the ones that are disguising their voices. She is more than a leader. She is you, and she is me, and she is our future. She hit that glass ceiling back in the 80s, back in the day, a long time ago, and now we're past that. But we'll all stand up to the abuse of women with all our might, because we are Me Too, and this is our new law. Well, thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing some more words tonight. And thank you back to Emma. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rose. That was incredible. It's actually sparked up, reminded me of, I think it was Kerry I said to the other day when we were talking about the Me Too movement, how I remember when that first came about, the hashtag Me Too, and what angered me and what I found just kind of explains the way the world views things with women, is not the first thing that people would say wasn't, "Oh, that's terrible, I can't believe he did it." It was, "Why didn't they say anything?" And it was the women that were blamed, and it just, yeah, angered me. But I really also like, Rose, that you mentioned the woman who originally founded the Me Too movement, because not a lot of people know that she was the one that originally founded it. So thank you for that. That was incredible. I really enjoyed that. And next we're going to move over to Rebecca. Take it away.
Thanks. Okay, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yep, all good.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's lovely to be here. So thanks very much to the Women Writers Committee for inviting me. I want to talk about mostly Marion Campbell and my play, The Air That Carries the Weight. And The Air That Carries the Weight was produced by Stellar Quine's theatre company. It was on at the Traverse in 2016. I'll tell you more about the plot of the play and I'll do some readings from it, but I want to start by talking about Marion Campbell, who is a Scottish archaeologist and writer. She was born in 1919 and died in 2000. And she was based in Argyll for most of her life, where she was from. She came from a prominent family, the Campbells, owning Kilberry Castle and estate. And yet, despite this apparent privilege, she did remain in many ways throughout her life an outsider. So a bit of backstory. I came to Marion through her novel The Dark Twin, which was published in '73, and became a wee bit of a kind of very, very underground kind of cult classic. It transpired there was an American film producer at one point who was really keen on making an adaptation that never quite transpired. It's just one of these kind of really kind of very rough hidden gems. I came to it through another piece that I was writing around about 2011 and was really entranced by it. It's essentially, it was marketed as a children's book, but it's kind of amazing when you read it because it's so intense and dark and intricate. It's set in Bronze Age Scotland, and it kind of melds together Marion's interests in Scottish history, archaeology, a kind of mythology or mysticism, and how she weaves all of that together. So I came to her through that novel and then got to know more of her non-fiction writing and then became much more interested in her as a person. So I'll give you a wee bit more of her backstory. She was an only child after her siblings died in childhood. So she inherited Kilberry when she was only 8 after her father's death, but it followed the male line, so that the estate, even though her mother was still living, I understand, the estate got given away or sold away to a cousin. But then thankfully the cousin re-inherited it back to Marion when she was 18. So she nearly sort of lost everything. She briefly went to school in Edinburgh, but was largely self-taught. And throughout her life, despite her publication record and her visible reputation, she still, I understand, felt that there was some sort of judgment in certain circles for lack of, as she put it, letters after her name, which is extraordinary when you look at the work that she's done. During World War II, she gave up a place at Oxford to join the Auxiliary Territorial Service and the Wrens. And then after the war, she came back to Kilberry and ran the estate, I understand, pretty much single-handedly, and managed several of the farms. She never married, and then over the years she was forced to start selling off parts of the estate and some of the farms, and it was around that time that she started having what she described as waking dreams and kind of almost prophetic dreams, probably stress-induced, and that's when she started writing fiction. So she had been writing historical documents and had always had an interest in Scottish history, but she started writing fiction around that time, and The Dark Twin came from that time. She was also involved in politics, and she served as an SNP councillor for 20 years. And then in 1954, her childhood friend Mary Sandeman joined her in Kilberry Castle, and there's this lovely story of the two of them in childhood. So Marion was based on the Kilberry, the Argyll side, and Mary Sandeman on Jura, and apparently they would shine torches to each other at night time across the Sound of Jura. Whether or not that's true, I like to think it is, and certainly Neil Asherson mentioned it in his amazing obituary of Marion. So I take it as truth, and it's mentioned in the play, so it's it's down in print. Yes, so they worked together then on archaeological digs. They would go out around Argyll. In 1962, they created an archaeological survey of mid-Argyll. This is with no training, no formal education in archaeology, and it predated any official such record of that area by about 30 years, and is still referred to. Marion helped found the National History and Antiquarian Society of Mid-Argyll, and she also spearheaded the creation of the Auchendrane Township Museum and the Kilmartin House Museum, which you may be well aware of, yeah. And that also now houses the Marion Campbell Library, which you can make an appointment to visit. And during the research for the play, I knew Kilmartin, the Kilmartin House Museum already, so I visited there again and used the library, but also was able to stay at the cottage at Kilberry. So Marion's relatives now live in the castle, but there was a cottage that she moved into later in her life. So I went and stayed there for part of the writing and research of the play. So it was a kind of really intensive process of writing all of this and researching it. There's a lovely foreword to The Dark Twin by Naomi Mitchison, and it describes Marion having talked about when she was writing The Dark Twin, or when she was almost dreaming it, really, that it flew above her and she caught it as it flew. So I think that's the biggest thing that really drew me to Marion Campbell's work, this kind of effortless melding of historical writing, archaeological study, geological, geographical, and the much more kind of mystical, poetic. For her, they kind of coexisted very easily. So I was kind of really drawn to that, her way of thinking, and that comes through her way of writing. In her non-fiction book, Argyll, the Enduring Heartlands, that really comes across. There's a lot of sometimes questionable kind of historical details. I'm very forgiving of that sort of thing, but it definitely brings out her sort of poetic sensibility as well, and the fact that this all kind of coexisted very easily for her. So I started writing The Air That Carries the Weight. Initially thought I might do an adaptation of The Dark Twin, and then realised that was going to just be impossible. And it became much more than that. So The Air That Carries the Weight is essentially a fictional story of two friends, Isabel and Yvonne. And Isabel has inherited a cottage in Argyll where her friend Yvonne was living just before she died. And Isabel is really our eyes and ears into the story. So we come to the cottage and we learn more about what Yvonne was doing while she was living there. She was reading Marion's work, she was gardening, she was walking, exploring, she was getting a lot into kind of mysticism and these kinds of things. So Isabel is really unpacking all of that. Isabel evokes the character of Yvonne, so even though she's passed, she's with us in the play. And likewise then Yvonne evokes this version of Marion Campbell, who of course is also passed, but we understand that Yvonne and Marion can speak to each other. So the play becomes this place where past and present are coexisting all of the time. So I'm going to read a few sections from it. I'm actually going to start with the first set description, because you don't often get to hear these things when you go and see a play. You don't see this unless you're looking at the play text. And I think it kind of captures this idea of all things being possible in this one place at this time. So this is the initial set description. The set represents Yvonne's cottage, though at times it becomes Marion's cottage at Kilberry. There are Ordnance Survey maps and star charts on the walls, images of Pictish carvings, herbs and plants hanging from the walls and ceiling, apothecary jars and implements lying around, as well as numerous books and notebooks, a kitchen table and chairs, a suggested fireplace. The upstairs space offers a divide between the different worlds of the characters, as well as another entrance and exit into the rest of the house. There's a small telescope on the landing, as if it points towards a skylight. So the set really captured this sense of there being a ground, a middle area and an above, which throughout the whole play there's this kind of archaeological template to it all, these different layers of time. So I'll read from this next section, which is the first time we hear from Marion. So this version of Marion Campbell is evoked by the character of Yvonne, and she sort of bursts into the play mid-story. I like to imagine she was always mid-story about something. And this scene, and really throughout the play, I'm going for this blend of Marion's pragmatism, and she was absolutely a no-nonsense, very straight down the line, quite hard person. But as I say, also had this real openness to mysticism about her. Although she had a line, apparently she was absolutely intolerant of anything approaching New Age. So she had a line, and in the play I'm always kind of, probably pushing it quite close to that line. But really that's what the play is playing around with. And apologies for Gaelic pronunciation throughout, really. I'm doing my best with that. Okay, so this is Marion. Oh, and also in this scene, Marion evokes, through her storytelling, she evokes her friend Mary Sandeman. So there's sort of two voices going on, although Mary never physically appears in the play. Well, it was on that road that the last woman to be killed by a wolf was found lying in the snow. She was still clutching the spindle she'd used to spear the wolf. And now what's left of the wolf? That story and a bloody spindle in the snow. And what's left of the woman? That story and a bloody spindle in the snow. Everything here evens out, do you see? It's a place of the imagination, a place anyone can go and is welcome. There are no doors in this place, and if there were, they'd be open, as they should be. The only folk putting any doors there or telling you they're closed are those after their own interests. They're so keen to be telling us all about these doors, oh, how heavy they are, which ones can and can't be opened, that they alone have the keys. Well, should that not make you all the more determined to try the handle? You nearly had that owl, didn't you, Mary? Oh, yes, and to this day I don't know what went on. It was hooting the 1 minute from over in the beaches as I was watching the moon. Then out of nothing, it stopped. Now I still don't know why, but I shot my arm up in the air and straight into the owl's downy feathers. It flew right over me and landed all a-fluster, eyeing me from the old oak. You said, didn't you, Mary? Stars on stars, and that was magic. Oh yes, the stars that night, and they all came out then. Some near and some distant, and so many of them already dead. They'd be calling you out, those stars, drawing you in. The brink of fairy there, Mary, wasn't it? That's where you were, the gloaming. Maybe I'd dream of Mary, with her torch across the water, and her stars, the map pressed out across the flagstones, the stones weaving crisscross markings on her knees, and her in the garden outside the cottage, kneeling, digging, the two of us digging. What we found buried there spoke of all those dreams, all at once, the same place at a different time. So, a different place, wouldn't you say? And we'd work away, Mary and I, digging, sifting, dusting, recording, without knowing or needing to then, which dreamer's sleep we might be part of yet. That each one of us is awake in another's dream, that we're shining, guiding, brightly awake, and maybe already dead, like one of Mary's stars. The best thing Mary and I ever did was to enter that dream and live there. We made it our home. We cared about our work, what it told us, what it gave us, what we could give to others. We cared for each other. And that's a sort of a dream, is it not? To know another person and share your lives together is a lending of breath, a dream of each other and of the places in which you dream. You can move between those places if you know them well enough. But first, you have to know yourself. And how to do that? Well, you have to forget. Forget the airs and graces of the ways you've been taught to behave, the weight of other folks' expectations. And how do you do that, if not by digging? And then there's a later scene where Marion is talking about her time working with Mary on the archaeological digs. There's an amazing photo of them actually, which is described in the play by another character, but Marion she's standing in a kind of little enclosure and she's like sort of hitching up something, or trousers or something, and she's got a fag hanging out her mouth. And Mary Sandeman was this much sort of smaller, more bird-like woman, and she's sort of perched on this rock beside Marion in like a tweed twin set and a wee handbag. And this is how they went out and did their archaeological digs. It's amazing. So you'll find that photo easily enough if you Google them. So this scene is Marion kind of describing their work together, and then also describing the time of her life when the dark twin and much more of her kind of fictional stories started to come to her. So it becomes sort of increasingly trance-like. And also, so she mentions the dark twin, and the two characters of the dark twin are Drost and Ailill. And Marion also mentions the fact that really she's weaving this story of Isabel and Yvonne, which are the two fictional characters of the play. Mary and I would tramp out together in all weather. We'd get the maps out and we'd decide where we were going to investigate that day. We rewrote the maps. Added all the features we'd found, cairns, burial chambers, forts, sites linked to rituals, traditions. And I was writing by then, the stories, you know. So all crossed over, one world nourishing the other and the next. And the voices came, and they were Gaelic. First as I slept, then the doors were open and it was all the time. The dark twin came, all the stories, the dreams, the way two weather systems collide to make cloud, thunder, rain. It rained. A great release of pressure from everything that came before and what was wanting to come in. It rained. The stories, Drost and Ailil, Mary and I, it rained. It rained as we pushed through the bracken and clambered over walls, Mary hitching her skirt up at the top of a stile. It rained as we crouched inside the caves, watching it rain from inside the rock. It rained as we dug, as we swept away the soil. It rained Kilberry, Campbell, Jura. The dogs taught us to lick it from our coats and shake it off when it weighed us down. It rained sea, stone, home. It rained on the bones and the upturned roots. It rained MacDonald, MacDougall, MacLean. It rained Deirdre of the Sorrows. It rained Dalriada, Danad, Aistana, Magnus, Ragnald, Godred. It rained Avon Yvor. It rained Antoiv Eila. Rain beating like a drum, a remembered beat, wakening, summoning, like 100 million heartbeats, some fainter than others for being further away, but all falling, all at once, all around, anointing our skin and the air and the birds and the animals on the ground, swirling us all together. And for a short time after the rain, there is healing and growth. You read the soil, you tend the buds, you make what you can with the time you have. But the pressure builds, and now it rains again. Isabel and Yvonne. So I'll leave Marion there. But if you want to see more about the play, you can go to Stellar Quine's website and look for Past Project, I think it's called, and click on the Air That Carries the Weight, because there's a lovely trailer that they made and there's some more information about it. And actually, after I did the play, this was in 2016, there's a Scottish archaeological organisation called Dig It, and they got in touch with me because they were doing a Wikipedia-thon, or a wiki-thon is it called, when they update Wikipedia with entries that are missing, and they were doing one for Marion Campbell. So they contacted me about that, and they've also got a profile about Marion Campbell on their Dig It website. So she had a bit of a kind of resurgence for a minute there, and it seems to be the case with her. She keeps kind of popping up, which is wonderful. And I'll finish with a poem, which is a brand new poem, but not a new character. This is about St Enoch, we know her as, also St Thenu. So St Enoch being one of the saints of Glasgow, best known perhaps as St Mungo's mum. There's a gorgeous mural in Glasgow just before you get to High Street if you're coming from George Square. A gorgeous mural there of St Enoch. And also a Karen Polwart song called Thany, which is gorgeous too. So she's a kind of, she's out there. She's a wee bit known as a character. She was a 6th century Pictish princess who was raped and then fell pregnant, and then went to her father, who was this Pictish king, who as a punishment for falling pregnant had her executed by being flung off Traprain Law, which is just outside Edinburgh. She survived the fall, but then apparently was put into a small boat with no oars and sent off up the Firth of Forth, where she eventually washed up in Fife, had her baby. She was taken in by St Seraph, had St Mungo, and survived, but we don't know anything other than she ended up in Glasgow, and hence St Enoch apparently is where she was buried. But I was reimagining the character of Thany here, imagining, gosh, there was this really young woman, and so I imagine her as a kind of teenage voice, this kind of rebelliousness and this resilience, this drive to survive no matter what. So it became a kind of teenagey, kind of punk reimagining of who I think of when I think of Thany. And who knows, maybe it was quite close to her true character. So this is Thany. It was your own damn body they flung you off, the dafties in charge. Did they not know who you were? You, who are never going to die. You, girl, shouldering your environment, marking hearts onto boulders as you tumulted your way to the ground. Thanie loves, one for the ages. A monument of sorts for what was yet to come. You, arriving by river, girl, swinging full-bellied on the back of a seabird, ambition flickering on salted mirror. You who fly through holy nets of ritual, golden seams gone silted and airless hills. You knew that. You always knew. It was all just wailing and bells. The marks they'll never see. And your own body so full of breath, underground, reachable as an open secret that tells you where to land, so that you remain, needless and uncommanded, your coracle of peach skin, leaving sin on the shore for the other ones, voices all fearty and grave, plateaued and far, far away now that you're free. Thank you. And that's it from me. I'll pass back over to Emma. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. I really enjoyed it. Made me think a lot about the importance of friendship amongst women. Made me think about growing up. I went to an all-girls school, which you can imagine was feisty and had its moments, but at the end of the day, it wasn't actually that bad, and a lot of girls always came through for each other. So it made me think a lot about the importance of friendship among women. So thank you. I really enjoyed that. And we're going to move now on to Katie. Before we allow you, the audience, to either share your own work or we can have a talk about some of the themes that have been discussed tonight. And yeah, so Katie, take the stage.
No problem at all. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, all good.
Smashing. Actually, I'm looking to open this out really as a point of discussion for people to interject. Obviously, I hope that people have got their own little stories or whatever, but I was looking to expand what I've been sort of experiencing recently. So last year for International Women's Day, I don't know if anybody who's here today was able to attend that event, which Emma hosted. And that was the last live event I think I attended. And, you know, I'd set myself up for wanting to read, and this was the first time I'd sort of read in public and sat down and I really worked for weeks and weeks in advance at getting things prepared. And that's how I sort of looked at bringing something to this event as well. The reason why I'm sort of opening this out to discussion is because this year, as everybody can probably relate to, our lived experiences are just completely different from anything that we've been prepared for or able to prepare for ever before, which has put a real change on anything that we've been able to do, able to achieve. And the past couple of weeks, I've been under an immense amount of pressure. But what I wanted to talk about is the pressure that I've been under is entirely brought on by myself. And I'm sort of wanting to open this up to everybody to see what other people's experiences have been of lockdown and the things that we feel that we need to be achieving to warrant the time that we have. I know that I'm not speaking for everybody there. There's key workers that are now working more than ever before. I'm certainly not generalizing this to everybody, but for me, I've spent my entire working life as a performer, and I've never had to do anything else. This has been my life from day one. And what's quite interesting is I've sort of taken bits from what Rose has said and bits from what Rebecca said, and you can intertwine everything to kind of link in. There's all talk about multitasking, talking about adapt or perish. I was brought up in the performance industry. I'm sure you've all heard the fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And these messages are sort of teaching us that anything that is not success must therefore be failure. And so when I've had to spend a year taking a step back from all that I've ever known, this has translated into my head as, well, this is you failing. Nothing to do with a global pandemic, Carrie. This is you not achieving what you should be achieving. And so I spent the year learning a new language. Rose, it tickled me when you were talking, because I've spent the year learning Spanish and a TEFL course and learning a music course and learning to do this and doing Facebook Lives. I'm creating a new show for whenever the world might open back up again and hopefully be able to go back on stage. In the meantime, I've had no choice but to take a job that is completely out of my comfort zone, based in an office, which I'm now working from home. And suddenly faced with the prospect of, do you want to speak at an International Women's Day event, which I would usually go, do you know what? Yeah, brilliant. And this year found myself shrinking away and thinking, I can't do it, and putting so many barriers up against myself. I'm not achieving enough, I'm not doing. If I'm not prepared, I'm therefore going to fail. So I just wanted to put this out to the group, really, and hope to start a discussion on what other people's experiences are, how you feel, how you've been feeling, what your experiences of this past year are, and if you too are feeling this immense pressure to be constantly motivated. I don't want to re-emerge on the other side of this at the exact point where I left off, even though that's perfectly acceptable to do. My head is telling me a different story, and so yeah, I was just hoping to start a discussion about that. Please feel free to talk.
I don't mind. All right, yeah, go Rebecca. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because just before, when we were just in a quick chat before the event proper started, I was mentioning I was part of an event last week that Playwright Studio Scotland were hosting, which was about how does theatre come back and what can we do as playwrights. You know, I was also in the middle of doing a final draft of a new play that, you know, I'd been tinkering away with for a few years, and then hoped, you know, last year would be the year I would finish it, and then haven't touched it since. Don't tell anyone, I've just told everyone, but I'll finish it. But, you know, there was that sense of, well, what for, you know, and there is that very real sense of, yeah, theatres are going to take a long time to come back. There'll be a backlog of work. But what we were discussing was this blended approach of digital work, film things, virtual reality, augmented reality, but nonetheless, no one was denying that first and foremost we want to get back into theatres, or, and this is crucial, non-theatre spaces as soon as we can. So maybe this is all about coming back differently. And so, Kerry, sorry, to get to what you were specifically asking, I think my biggest takeaway from the last year is, for me personally, was it working? You know, the way I was having to do things previously, I was on, even though I've been freelance for a long time, you know, doing this for a living for a long time, was it really working? You know, it was really only just getting by, and I was on just as much of a treadmill in many ways than if I was doing another job, you know. Yeah.